We're just about 24 hours away from the kickoff of IPL 2024, and on this edition of Business Plus, we are talking about the brand wagon that IPL is. Bear in mind, it is the second richest sporting league in the world, and IPL 2024 promises more sponsors and more viewership than ever before. That's right. For the upcoming season 2024 of the Indian Premier League, the digital partner of the league, JioCinema, has roped in 18 sponsors and 250 advertisers. Bear in mind, JioCinema is a digital streaming partner, and last year around, there were more than 450 million people watching the IPL via the digital mode, while a little over 500 million people were watching it on TV. Almost equal. The viewership on TV and digital have almost evened out. The fantasy sports platform Dream11 is a co-presenting sponsor, as well as there are others who are associate sponsors, and there is going to be a brand spotlight that is in the works to understand how much of a brand wagon is IPL 2024. We have a guest joining us. We have Mr. Lloyd Matthias, angel investor, joining us. Lloyd, always a pleasure to have you on the show. I mean, look at it. We are in IPL 2024. The viewership between digital and TV is almost evened out. There were doubts about whether teams will get enough sponsors or not. But over the last 10 days, there's a lot of momentum and a lot of pickup in terms of individual IPL franchises signing on board many advertisers and sponsors. What is your sense of how big a brand wagon is IPL 2024?
Thanks, Krishna. Cricket in India, the appetite is unending, right? So we know that whenever cricket happens, brands, spectators, everything converges. And this year is going to be no different. And I think the IPL has the amazing ability to attract people, A, because of its timing. It happens, closer to the summer. I think great evening timings, loads of entertainment. So I think it's become India's go-to destination for entertainment. Having said which, I think two trends to be watched out for. While clearly both, JioCinema and the television broadcaster star Disney, of course, they remain independent entities for now. But going ahead, they're going to work as one entity in due course. I think the competitiveness that happened in terms of advertising last year between two rival stations then, one digital and one linear TV, actually helped in the growth of the advertising, right? To get a whole lot of advertisers. I told JioCinema last time attracted a few thousand advertisers because they were able to customize and actually get advertisers by very, very small geographies, promising the fact that in digital, actually target your consumer very specifically, unlike linear TV where you're broad-basing your advertising. So I think that's one significant change, that this year the competitive intensity in terms of attracting advertising has diminished, and therefore the advertiser is going to be a little bit on the back foot. The second factor to recognize is that in the last 1 year, I think clearly one of the big sponsors who are the gaming, I think they've gone on the back foot, right? There have been regulatory issues, there have been, regulator rulings that have not been very favorable to the industry. So I think some degree of the money that was pouring in would have cooled off. And then, of course, is the larger so-called funding winter, which is a lot of digital-first companies that used to be, really, really large in terms of IPL. I think they've stepped back. So I think that's the other factor. And lastly, of course, is, while I said cricket's appetite is never-ending, recognizing that a lot of brands are keeping their powder dry for this year's big tickets, which is the T20 World Cup, which is going to happen soon after the general elections. So I think there's lots on the plate for advertisers, and therefore they're being a little picky and a little choosy. So I don't see the advertising revenues jumping up as much as they did, let's say, last year versus year before.
Okay. Talking about jumping up, you've seen the value of IPL as a league jump up, a huge jump of 433% since its inception. It's valued at over $10.5 billion, second richest sporting league in the world. It's even a significant growth as compared to what it was back in the previous year, 2022, where it was around $8.5 billion. In that sense, Lloyd, with viewership, also increasing thanks to digital. I mean, like the difference between digital and broadcast remaining almost barely anything. Tell us in terms of where does IPL go from here? There was one projection that IPL could be valued at $50 billion going forward.
I think the growth for IPL as a brand is limitless for now. And I say this with full accountability. I think one is because, like I said, the appetite for cricket in India is unending. Two is as India's economy progresses, becomes more robust, I think more and more brands and businesses will flock to the IPL and to cricket in general. I think third is the popularity of cricket as a sport, not just in India, but to a larger global audience, often driven by the Indian diaspora. But if you look at the fact that today there are equivalents of the IPL in all cricket playing nations, there are equivalents of the IPL in all states of India. You have the Karnataka Premier League and the Kerala Premier League and so on and so forth. So I think there's a proliferation, all of which feeds back to this mighty giant called the IPL. And two is increasingly we're seeing that players are beginning to prioritize their IPL. So they're being more choosy about the formats they play, whether it's Test, One Day, and T20. And within T20, they want to give their best to the IPL because purely in terms of revenue maximization, per ball bowled and per ball faced for a batsman, I think the IPL is about 10x more remunerative than any other cricketing option. So as much as no one talks about it publicly, I think the commercial attractiveness of the IPL is going to attract the best in sport. So barring for Pakistan, which are not permitted Pakistani cricketers, I think the world's best are keen to play, to showcase their best, to put on their best performances. And that is a heady cocktail. The fact that no other sport, the world's best, dying to play in India. Indian youngsters get a chance to see the best players. Indian young aspiring cricketers get to play with the best in the world. I think that together is a heady cocktail.
Right.
The only go ahead, please go ahead.
Right. I'm asking this because at a stage where you have so many brands, you're talking about the fact that, brands have to, spend on the IPL and then you have the Cricket World Cup coming up. But IPL in that sense has to continuously keep innovating, to keep attracting brands and keep growing its business. And that's the reason why you have something like the brand spotlight being rolled out by JioCinema, where a clutch of brands and advertisers will be able to push their brand through in the first 5 overs of the opening game between Chennai Super Kings and Royal Challengers Bangalore. How do you look at at a move like that?
I think that's fantastic. I think one of the great charms of IPL and all its media associates is their ability to continuously innovate, bring new, interesting devices to attract consumers, whether it's on the field, whether it's off the field. And I think this year that becomes even more paramount, given the fact that IPL is running directly into India's other biggest passion, which is politics, right? So you're going to see the entire IPL actually played out literally in the shadow of the general elections, right? So state after state over now, between now and the 1st of June, and of course June 4th when the counting happens, I think there are two big passions that are clashing. There's cricket, which all everyone in India loves, and of course there's politics that willy-nilly everyone gets into their WhatsApp groups, whether they're active participants or otherwise. So I think in that context, the innovation quotient has to be dialed up. I'm glad they brought in the brand spotlight. But I think they lead to a lot more, to attract spectators on the ground, and two, which is a little bit of a thing that many advertisers I know are worried about, is that people are snacking on the IPL. There was a time in the early years of 2007-8 when people got together and watched a whole game, 6 to 9 p.m. or 7:30 to 12:30. I think today people are getting choosy. I, for one, know that there's a huge intensity of people wanting to watch the last 5 overs. So 20 overs was too much. Now we really want the last 5 overs. A lot of people actually gun for overs number 19 and 20. And I'm told that advertisers are willing to pay a premium to be in those critical moments. So I think those are the small little changes and tweaks that both, IPL, of course, but certainly the media management teams need to look into deep.
Right, so clearly innovation has to be done if IPL expects to keep growing at the way in which it has been growing over the last decade and a half. But to talk to us in terms of IPL 2024, as you're rightly pointing out, there's too much happening. In fact, we have the schedule only out for the first 2 weeks of IPL because there is a general elections in India coming up. How difficult is it, do you think, to sustain the momentum for IPL as a property and for the brands associated with it over the time period that IPL plays out in?
I think that's always going to be a challenge. But like I said, cricket fatigue, as much as it threatens, never really plays out. Just when people thought that WPL, the Women's Premier League, was flagging a little bit, came the great semi-final and final, and RCB winning, and that suddenly again spiked interest. So there were actually people following very closely the Women's Premier League. And hardly as the excitement died down, here we have is the main IPL coming up. And of course, like I said, later in the year, you have got the ICC T20 World Cup. So I think the cricket excitement continues to build up. And with all the innovations at play, with possibly the best time of the year, with the elections, I think it's nothing but I think it's going to be a good period for the IPL. Though this year the growth may not be as sharp, but I think the brand value will continue to proliferate and do much better.
Right, and you're talking about a clutch of brands who have signed multi-year deals as well, and then a new brand coming on board as well for this year. Tell us in terms of the assortment of brands that you're seeing, the smorgasbord of brands. Now, everything from new age brands to traditional brands, all of them on the table as far as IPL is concerned.
Absolutely, Krishna. I think this year, and in a sense, the last couple of years have seen the return of the old legacy brands. There was a time when IPL was pretty much dominated by the e-commerce majors, by the new digital-first brands. If you just look around the sponsor palette this year, you've got a lot of the old heavy hitters. Tata Motors is here, State Bank of India is here, Thumbs Up, Britannia. So we've got a lot of the Vodafone. So I think this is kind of return, signifying the return of the old consumer majors, right? Which at some point in time found it too expensive. Pretty happy working with general entertainment. I think we'll see a lot of that return. These are the mainstay of cricket. The old advertisers are going to be there. So they're going to use the fact that a lot of the digital dominant brands are relatively lying low to work with them. Of course, you'll keep having a lot of the digital majors, right? So I see the people like Amazon, like Google, Amazon, a lot of them being very active as well. Things like the AMFI, the AMFI, which is the Mutual Fund Federation. So I think there's going to be a very, very healthy mix of advertisers. I would see some financial services taking a little bit of a backseat, possibly focusing more on your genre, which is the news genre, given things are going to heat up with all the election action. But I think a lot of the old legacy brands are going to make a big entry back into the IPL.
Oh, we hope so, Lloyd. We hope so that enough and more sponsor interest comes towards news in this election season. If not now, then when? Maybe if we can, how much ever we can eat away at IPL Spy, the news business would only be happy.